All right. Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's our Christmas show. I was just thinking during the intro there that I forgot to wear my ugly sweater. I was telling my wife this morning that I was gonna like wear one of my ugly sweaters, but I forgot to do that. So you don't get to see my sloth one from a couple years ago where my cat was like crawling on my shoulder. But that's probably
We
for the
just
best because I'd
need
be like
a
sweating like a pig.
Copilot for stream, and then we can go back and we can repaint your shirt with an ugly sweater after the
Right.
fact.
Yeah. Yeah. I need designer in Clip Champ to paint an ugly sweater on in video. How's it going, Andy? Are you kind of like coasting into the Christmas time, or has it been pretty busy, like a last sprint to the finish?
Save the best for last, I think. Been a couple
Mhm.
of heavy weeks of Copilot, rolling that out in the organization. Looking forward to some time off next week and kind of disconnecting a little while. This fire hose of all things Copilot for like the last couple of months has been exciting, but my brain is really tired right now. I know I
Yeah.
was up late last night looking at a few new blog posts that had recently been released. There's been some Copilot studies coming out, and it's really fascinating to read all of that stuff. But like so much
Hmm.
information and so many changes. I think just today shared with you and Daryl and Alistair a video about Copilot for Microsoft Forms. Not even on the roadmap, and there's a video of
Yeah,
it
I hadn't
out
heard
in the
anything about
wild.
that.
Yeah, like I looked around, I'm like,
Yeah.
what? There's no one else, but this is pretty cool. Just to stumble on YouTube and find that.
Hmm.
But yeah, doing well. Information overload, ready for some
Yeah.
rest. And I too, I had a shirt and completely forgot to change into it
Oh,
before we
really?
started, so we can paint mine
Nice.
over as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet for me this week. It's been nice. Like it was a huge sprint to the end last week, but I did my last co-pilot onboarding session for the year. Going to pick those back up the second week of January. We got the last like group of the year onboarded last week. This week it's been like catch up all week. Everybody's pretty much out. It's been like catching up on all my reading that I've been missing on. I had like 40 something articles to get through, a bunch of podcasts to listen to, videos in my YouTube watch later to go through, and like those stack up because I want to take notes on them, because they're like work related, but they just stack up to the end of the year, and I've been like doing some training and stuff like that. I was able to work a little bit more with Copilot Studio as well this week. That was pretty good. I watched the video. So a plug for Lisa Crosby. If you don't know her or don't see her on YouTube, look her up as well. If you're on my channel, I don't know why you wouldn't be on Lisa's channel. She's growing a lot faster, but she's huge in the Power Platform, in Dynamics and things like that. She's got great series on Copilot, and I was watching her video earlier this week about Copilot Studio, and she took a different approach than what I've tried in the past. I built like a very meta bot. It was a Copilot for answering questions about Copilot, like privacy and security questions. She had the example of doing a like a brand checker or a style guide thing. So I built that internally. I got like our style guide from my organization, loaded that in, pointed it to like our branding zone, and then I've built this and sent it to a friend of mine in our brand team, to let him try it out a little bit. That's like, hey, let's put some problematic statements into this Copilot, and let's say like, okay, tell me what's wrong with this. And it kicks back like, okay, here's the 5 things that are wrong according to the style guide, with the citations of like, yeah, you're not supposed to use this terminology. You're supposed to, capitalize this. That was, incorrectly referenced. Um, so far it's really accurate. I think the next stage is to figure out like, how do I get that into M365 chat as an actual plugin, right? So that it's not just like its own kind of demo website. Um, so yeah, I've been doing some learning and expanding my knowledge as we kind of get into like extensibility in the new year. So yeah, thanks,
So
Andy. You put Lisa's website right there.
I agree with you about her channel. It's a great channel, and the stuff that she's doing over there is really really cool.
Hmm.
I'll have to go back and check that studio one out. Man, you were speaking my language with the Copilot and style guide. I've had that idea in
Hmm.
my head since the very first time I read about Copilot and being able to connect to sources and synthesize information.
Hmm.
I thought, like, I actually have the Microsoft Style Guide bookmarked. I pull that site up all the time when I'm trying to
Mm.
figure out like how to reference a product for like a presentation. And so to be able to point a Copilot Studio at that and then prompt against it, and here's what I need, and basically turn it into a
Hmm.
citation engine. That's pretty cool. I know I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be disconnecting over the holidays, John. I think you just gave me a side project to work on.
Yeah, yeah. The guy reached out to me like several weeks ago. I was asking kind of like art of the possible stuff, and we kind of threw it against Copilot. We put the style guide like in my OneDrive, and it was okay. It didn't do a great job. You had to like actually at mention, use the slash command to reference the style guide and then ask it against it. And it was kind of hit or miss. When I build a Copilot with Studio, it actually trains or it scrapes and indexes the websites and the text that you specifically upload to the generative AI tab. So it got way more accurate answers and way faster. I think that might be a topic for us to revisit maybe in a couple sessions for a deep dive. Is maybe we could deep dive on Studio when both of us get some more practice with it and kind of show some of that stuff off. But the topic for today is we wanted to round out kind of our intro to Copilot or hands on talking about Copilot with Loop and Whiteboard. We meant to cover everything in one shot back in November, but there's just so much to demo and so much to talk about that we basically got through the core components the first month. Then a couple weeks later, we went through the collaborative components with like, you know, stuff like Teams and M365 chat. And then now we're in like the modern collaboration, the latest of the latest with Loop and Whiteboard. And we wanted to, give it its due diligence and kind of show that off. So to answer Tony's question here, he had a great chat that was like, what are we talking about when we talk about Copilot and Loop and Whiteboard? I'm going to try to explain this. Jeremy Chapman mentioned this to us like after our last call where we did like a gear deep dive. And the way I understand it, if I heard him correctly, is that if it is Copilot in something, then that is part of like a package SKU that like you already bought, right? So you get M365 Copilot or Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's $30 a month. That gives you Copilot in X, Copilot in Whiteboard, in Loop, in Outlook, in OneNote, in Teams. All of those Copilot in something, that's $30 a month, Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. If it is Copilot for something, then that is like its own standalone thing. So that's like Copilot for sales, right? That's the old Viva sales thing. Um, what are some of the other ones did they change it to Copilot for GitHub yet? I don't know if that name changed, but I know that now instead
I
of
think that one's
Microsoft
still GitHub
365
Copilot.
Copilot, now the proper name is Copilot for Microsoft 365 because the for indicates that like that's a standalone thing. If it is in something, then it's like part of a package, is the way I understood it. If Jeremy ever watches this, he's going to be like, "You are totally wrong." but but is that the way you understood it when he was telling us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's
Yeah.
for the entire app and service. And then
Yeah.
in a specific application, it's Copilot in Word, Copilot in PowerPoint, Copilot in Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. So what we're talking about today, Tony, is Copilot in Loop and Whiteboard, which is part of the license for Copilot for Microsoft 365 at $30 a month. I feel like I should be like Daryl, right? And like write this on a whiteboard in some visual, like Daryl would have just like a beautiful way of sketching it out on a whiteboard that would make sense than me just like, you know, confusing everyone with my words. but but yeah, so we're going to talk about Loop and Whiteboard today. We talked a little bit about we're going to jump into Loop first, right? Let's like talk about Loop, and I think what we build out in Microsoft Loop is going to help us in Whiteboard as well, because I want to talk about like when we get to Whiteboard, there's a Loop component, for lack of a better term, pun not intended. There's a component of the Whiteboard Copilot that involves Loop. So we want to kind of like introduce, I think, with Loop first, and talk about like generating pages, things like that. Then move on to Whiteboard. Now, um, I think we're going to show Andy's screen first to talk about like the service description and kind of like what does Microsoft say about the Loop functionality, and then we'll jump over to my screen and we'll demo some Loop. We'll make a Loop workspace, stuff like that. So yeah, you want to jump in and talk about the definition of it? Oh, hey, Dick Flanagan is here. Hey, Dick, I'm excited that you're that you're watching. I used to work with Dick Flanagan. I've got a huge amount of respect for him. He was a big executive at Cerner. I really enjoyed working with him. So thanks for watching. Um, all right, Andy, let's jump in and talk about what we can do with Loop.
All right. So we're picking up where we left off previously. I think we should do the intro. So if we need to cut this into chapters and chunks, we'll do that. So I'm going to pause for a second. Then we'll do the introduction, talk about the service description, just high level, and then we'll dive right into the demo. So in this session, we're going to be talking about Copilot in Microsoft Loop. With Copilot inside of Microsoft Loop, we're going to be able to extend the collaborative features that are already built into Loop. Within our workspaces, our pages, and our components, we're going to be able to use Microsoft Copilot to do things like create and refine the content that's in there. So for example, if we're on a Loop page, we're going to be able to use Copilot to draft content for that page. And then once we've started drafting that content and building it out, we can refine it even further. We can use Copilot against that to maybe rewrite the content that's inside of there. That's going to help us to brainstorm and generate new ideas. But just like Copilot and some of our other experiences, it's going to help us to get over that blank page. It's going to give us a starting point where we just need a little bit of an idea of what we want, maybe a sentence or two, and then from there, Copilot's going to be able to get us started. But if we do have something that's there, maybe Copilot can help us to generate new ideas and new content around that. From a service description standpoint, and this is, we'll put this in the chat window as well as any of our social medias for anybody who's following along. In the service description in Microsoft Loop, we are looking at co-creating, getting up to speed, and then staying in sync with teammates there. You'll be able to iterate collaboratively inside of Loop with this. You can co-create prompts. That's interesting. We're not going to be able to test that today, unfortunately, because we're in different tenants, but that would be really interesting. You're going to be able to generate tables. You're going to be able to catch up where other teammates left off. You're going to be able to summarize your page content, and you're going to be able to generate recaps for teammates whenever you're handing that work off. So some exciting capabilities there. Let's dive into it with the hands-on piece. And John, we can hand it off to you for that part.
Sure. So back to like, the beginning of this, in my mind, I've broken out the capabilities into 2C words. So you're either creating with Copilot or you're consuming something with Copilot. That's kind of like the MVP, or like the minimum viable product right out of the gate, has been, I'm using Copilot to kind of get over the blank page. I'm creating something with it, generating content, or I'm pulling insights from something that already exists. I'm summarizing. I'm consuming some type of content. So it's the same story again with Loop, with Copilot in Loop. So if you're familiar with Loop, again, we've talked about it in the past. There's there's kind of like the base level of Loop all the way up to the application. So at its minimum anatomical unit is a Loop component, right? So a Loop component is these little you know, bare minimum collaborative nuggets, if you will, of text that you can work with together, or a table that you can work with together, or a board. You can now organize things onto boards and visualize them differently. But those components are portable, right? So you can paste them into Outlook, into Microsoft Teams chat, into Whiteboard, and wherever people are editing that component, they're editing together, right? It's in real time, without all the heavy lifting of like creating a Word document or creating an Excel spreadsheet. When we graduate up, then we get into Loop workspaces and Loop pages. So if you want to collect a bunch of those little collaborative pieces together, the shards, if you will, or the tables, the pieces of text, the pictures, you can collect those together in Loop pages, and pages live together in a construct called a workspace. So whenever we're in a workspace, we're accessing that with the Loop application. Now, today, Copilot in Loop is available at that app/workspace level. So if you're just throwing components into like a Microsoft Teams chat, like I've got this chat right here with Al from our gear guides, I could add a Microsoft Loop component, right? And I could like start a bulleted list or something. Copilot's not available here yet, anyway. Instead, we want to go at the top level. So you're kind of shifting your gear to like, I'm working and living in Loop. It's available as one of the slash commands that you can use inside of a Loop workspace. So we just got this new sandbox environment. Me and Andy were actually split into two tenants. We got to see about how we get together. But this is that like getting started kind of welcome Loop workspace that everybody gets when you launch loop.microsoft.com for the first time. You'll get this workspace called Getting Started. If you are also licensed for Copilot, then in any page you go into, you can type the / command, and Copilot is right here at the top for me. And again, I can do those two things. I can create content or I can consume content. So if I want to create a draft page, like let's create a new page right here, and we'll do, I really like your Jolly Roger Java. So like, let's do Jolly Roger Java menu ideation, right? So like we're going to come up with menu ideas, things like that. I'm going to slash to insert, and I'm going to draft page content. So now I can put my prompt in here to say, I need, some holiday themed things. I wonder why I didn't draft page content. John Moore is collaborating. Okay, well that's a live demo screw up. Let's say like insert menu here. Okay, I don't know why that's doing that. Let's go to summarize the page. So here's like the basics. It's got some different sub pages and things like that, but I'm on a main page. If I go down to the bottom, I'm going to try summarizing this page, and then I might have to like clear my cache or something to get the other one to work. So we're going to hit slash, we're going to hit summarize, and again, it says John is collaborating with Copilot. I wonder if this works in your tenant yet or not. Okay, I just refreshed and now I got a what's new section. It also wiped out my other page. Let's try summarize. Okay, I just needed a refresh. Sorry about that. So I'm using Copilot to summarize or consume content about this welcome page. This is like really kind of a lame demo, honestly, because it's like it welcomes people. It tells them that they can use Copilot or they can use Loop. So let's see if we can go back into ideation. Now the interface loaded up for me. So if I start with a blank page, I don't know where to go. I'm going to slash draft content. And then now I want to do something, right? I want to create something. I want to brainstorm, make a blueprint, or describe something in some way. So I'm going to say create a coffee shop menu with pirate themed holiday drinks. And we'll see what it comes up with. That's a very simple prompt. I'm just basically telling it to create something for me. I want a menu. I want them to be a coffee shop, pirate theme, stuff like that. When we get again into like, prompt engineering, you might want to have a different format, right? You might say, I want it in a table. I wanted a bulleted list. Give me 15 drinks instead of 7 drinks. Prompt engineering is about getting more specific and giving it more coaxing in what you exactly want. So what I've got here is just a bulleted list. It thinks that that's the simplest thing. So Jolly Roger roast, treasure chest mocha, cannonball cider. You've got some stuff, and it gave you a nice pirate theme, which is really cool. Now, if I click that Copilot icon, you notice that this basically went away. So it's kept that content. If I want to go adjust it, I can invoke Copilot again by clicking that very common Copilot icon that you're getting to know and see in all the different applications. If we do that, I can edit that, or I can see basically like what that was about. If I click on this, it will undo it and go back. So that's how you can kind of iterate on it. So then on this one, I can say create, give me a holiday themed coffee menu for a pirate themed coffee shop. Now I want to give it like a little bit more information. So format the options in a table, right? And we'll see like how did it do it a little bit differently. And so it's working on that for me. There we go. Oh gosh, a critical error occurred. Oh boy. So it's telling you like don't refresh this page. You're probably going to lose this. But now I've got a table format that's like it's a little bit more. It's like less cheeky, right? A little bit less like goofy and kind of talking like a pirate. Instead, it's got a pirate themed drink, and then it's a more normal looking description, right? Then I could take this and I could make it portable, right? So I could click on this, I could create a loop component out of it, and you'll see that what indicates that this is like portable, I can pop it out, go put it over in Outlook or Teams or whatever, is indicated by this purple boundary or this boundary box. I've now made this into a component, so it's a standalone thing. I can copy that. So I click the little copy button in the middle. Yes, access my keyboard, my clipboard. So I copy that, then I go over to whiteboard, and me and Andy, we could do some whiteboarding suggestions, but we could start out by pasting in that component. So this is what I'm talking about, how if you make something a component, you're giving it kind of that special wrapper so that you can go work with it somewhere else, right? So I'm pulling it out of the Loop app. I'm dealing with it somewhere else. Now, if I go down here, I can hit the slash, and you'll notice like I'm outside of the Loop app, so I don't have the Copilot stuff inside of just the component. So that's what I was saying at the very beginning is like you can't you can't do Copilot in a Loop component within Whiteboard or Outlook or Microsoft Teams. You got to do it in loop.microsoft.com. I'm hoping that gets a little bit more flexible in the future, but I haven't seen anything on the roadmap to indicate kind of where they're going with that. But we could go from here and we could start typing in the Loop component. We can't invoke Copilot, but if I go back over here, we'll see there's that text right there. So it kind of brought it back into the Loop app. I'm gonna have to kick my dog out again. My wife's here today, so maybe she grab her.
You're actually
Okay,
hearing
so
your dog today, right?
yes, I am. Actually, my hearing is coming back. I'm probably 50%. Like I can understand what people say, but it sounds like an octave or two too high. So like I don't hear any tone, but I can hear like the detail. For those who didn't know, like since Thanksgiving, I lost hearing in my right ear from congestion. Something happened. It like my tube is dysfunctioning in my ear, and I can't hear very well. Um, okay, what else about creation, Andy? Or do we want to build out like a whole Loop workspace and all of that, or
I think
what
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 I'd
have
like
you
to
found
continue
about
testing
Copilot?
is
Mm-hmm.
the capabilities like in page. So we've created some
Mm-hmm.
loop information in page. I want to see diving into it how far we can go in page and reference things that were already created with Copilot on the same page. So like for example, can we go below the
Mm-hmm.
table and reference the table in an additional prompt and see if we can build in
Mm-hmm.
page off of what we've already done.
Yeah, so we can do that with like a simple summary, right? So I can do like a slash insert, summarize this page. That's kind of what I was doing at the beginning is creating a draft. So now outside of the portable component, but inside the same page, I've got a page summary that's like, all right, here's the summary. Now I can kind of ideate on that a little bit and say, give me some sample pricing for these drinks. We'll see if that, can I kind of like iterate on it and kind of make it a little bit better, or would I need to do that up at the top in the actual table? We'll see what happens
So
on the summary.
I think a couple of interesting things are going to happen. So you prompted
Mm-hmm.
against that, and that's actually writing or doing a rewrite. And what's
Yeah.
really curious about that is that it's basically doing it's kind of like version history inside of a page. So like you've got the summarized page, which is the initial thing that you asked it to do, and then you've
Mm-hmm.
asked it you rewrote it essentially. So now you've got that other one. And if you look at the one that says "Give me some,"
Mm-hmm.
over to the side, you got copy icons and undo icons.
Yeah.
Um, so you can copy that, maybe reuse it. But if you click on summarize page, it
Mm-hmm.
reloads that area of the page with whatever the initial output
Yeah.
of that prompt was.
So
So
like
that's really
I've
curious.
got
This is
like
the
a
only app we've seen this behavior in as you're like live
mm-hmm.
drafting. This is really modern workplace, which I think is fitting for Microsoft Loop versus like some of the other apps.
Yeah, I think the way I would describe this is I've got like a chain kind of going here, right? And it's a different prompt, but it overwrote, right? It overwrote the summary with something completely different, but I didn't totally lose it. If I click out of it and then click back into there, that history is still there for me. So I'm curious, like if I'm like, oh no, I overwrote it, I want to go back, but I don't want to lose it. I want both. So can I copy? It doesn't look like I can copy that. I can undo it. If I go into it here, I can't copy that. I can't copy that. So my question was like, can I split those apart? Like, oh no, I didn't mean to overwrite it. I want to like have both. It doesn't look like I could do that today because if I undo it, it's going to go back to the page summary, and I bet it's going to lose that top one. Let's click on that. So if I hit undo, it went away. I only have the page summary, so I lost that other thing. So it looks like if you want to retain the history, you don't want to undo anything. If I undo it, now I've just gone back 2 steps, and now I'm back to the basic prompt. Um, if I'm like, oh no, I've got myself stuck in a bad loop, no pun intended. If I go here to version history, can I go back? So like it's 133 in Kansas City now. If I go back to 128 and confirm that was like 5 minutes ago, so I bet it doesn't have anything. Yeah, so see, it wasn't granular enough to do a version history on that specific chain that I was doing for that specific little. What would you call those things? They're not components because a component is like portable. There's like a copy component.
Hmm.
Daryl could probably help us out with like the right terminology. Like, what are these little nuggets that they're not components yet, but what are they called? If I have like a checklist and a table and a page, I can't remember. Um, I'm curious though. If I go here, it says that I edited content. Give me this. I edited it a little bit because I went down to the bottom. I add some text. So this is rewrite with Copilot. Could I iterate on this and keep this, but say add a column for the price blocks? Thank you, Daryl. So the terminology, the correct terminology, these are blocks. This up here at the top is a component because I've made it a component, so it's got a wrapper around it. A little bit confusing. So add a menu column with sample prices. Or add a, let me delete that. Add a price column with sample prices. So let's see, does it transform it or is it going to blow away all this text and just redo it? So we had like Jolly Roger Roast, Buccaneers Brew, Captain's Eggnog. Let's see if it retains. Okay, there we go. So I've still got those top three, right? It looks like it didn't change it. It looks like it added. And you can see that it's got a little description that's like it added a price column. This is before I did that. This is after I did that. So that's pretty nice. Is like you can kind of iterate on something like a table, right? But if you just say rewrite the whole thing, you run the risk of blowing it away. But you've got a history you can go back in the chain.
So Daryl is saying that if you go in and you write over something that Copilot wrote, that it's going to show those changes as annotations. So you just had to put a price column in there. So can you go in and edit something in the price column? And let's take a look if we can get that to recreate live.
So like instead of this, we're going to make this one $6. And then we're going to make this other one like, $4.50, $4.65, whatever. Now, if I go back up here to Copilot, like click off of it, click back into it. I noticed that it said edited content earlier, right here. There was an edited content area. If I go back in here, it did retain those changes. $6, $4.65. Those are the two that I changed. I think what Daryl's saying is like if Andy was in my tenant, I would see that changed, and I would see what's called the collaborative cursor. So I would see like Andy's little face next to the thing that he changed, and it would show that he made that change. That's hard to demonstrate because we're in two separate sandboxes right now. So Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you're talking about. Is you would see Andy's face right here next to the $6 if he had changed the price on it. I think Paul was saying, why don't you use the recap feature? That's another place you can go. So rather than going down here to the bottom, doing the slash and then hitting summarize page, instead what I can do is I can click at the top and I can click recap right here. And that does a new recap as its own standalone in the sidebar. So recap your changes with AI. So mention someone and enter your recap right here, or I can click the button. So it looks like this is going to do an intelligent, somebody added a / to the document. Okay, that's great. But I could say like at Al. I don't think Al's in my workspace. There it is. So I could say like, here's the menu items for our grand opening. And it tells me that like intelligently, hey, Alistair doesn't have access. Do you want to give him access? I can click on that and it's going to give him edit access so I can notify him. And he's going to be totally confused unless he's watching today. But that's where I would mention Andy and kind of get his attention and kind of put a recap together of like, here's what I did in the past day. I'm going to bed for the night. He picks up from South Africa the next day and keeps going. He could add a recap of what he did. So that's a little bit different than like just summarizing the page on the page itself. This is more almost like would you describe it as like a track changes? It's not automatic. Like you're actually, going out of your way to kind of add a comment on the page. Yeah, I feel like I'm not explaining what recap is very well, but to me, it feels like a summarization of like what you did for the day. So okay, yeah, so that's kind of the same as what Daryl said. It's like, hey guys, I'm getting ready to leave for the day. Here's what I did, and you could mention people to kind of get their attention. Um, this would probably look a lot better if we added more stuff to it. So why don't we add some other things in here so that's not just like, oh, John added a forward slash. So let's do another draft page, and we'll do give me a list of coffee shop locations. They'll be around the Bay Area in California. Let's see if it understands that and puts them, kind of in like San Francisco, Cupertino, Palo Alto. Oh, you can search for. Okay. Give me a list of locations to scout for new coffee shops to open in the Bay Area. Let's see if I tell it like, hey, I'm not looking for existing coffee shops. Like, give me some ideas of where to put new coffee shops. See if it understands that. Okay, so it's like, hey, I don't have real-time information, but these are some popular areas in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, some ideas like that. You should do further research and not just take Copilot at his word. What are some other things that we could kind of draft to get a better recap going? What else
Create
can we
a
think
create a
of?
checklist based off of one of the drinks.
Okay, yeah. Give me a sample recipe for Kraken's Kiss drink. So I'm mentioning something on the page that's earlier up in the page. Let's see if it takes that dark, mysterious coffee blend with a hint of orange. Let's see if it like incorporates that into a recipe for the drink.
I love how creative Copilot is in naming pirate themed beverages.
Yeah, your idea of like a fake company is pretty fun. Okay,
Who
Kraken's
wants
Kiss
to join our
cocktail.
Patreon and pay for some shirts? Jolly Roger
Right.
Java Company.
Yeah. It's a little bit more fun than Contoso. We just see Contoso all the time. So this is a dark, mysterious blend coffee with a hint of anise. I don't know what that is, and orange. So it did get like orange juice in here. It's got pineapple wedge. It's got a lot more like other juices and stuff. Uh, there's the uh, things like that. Although honestly, dude, that's a cocktail.
I was gonna
This
say,
is
is
a
this like,
coffee.
are we a coffee shop or are we a cocktail bar?
Right? Yeah. So like I could give that a little bit earlier. So
That
uh
would be the most pirate themed thing ever. You go into the
yeah.
coffee shop and all they sell are rum based cocktails.
Uh rewrite the recipe and use the description from the table above. Let's see if it's able to like navigate the the description. The other thing I've noticed about this, Andy, is it's not giving you references. So when you do
Right.
anything in like Word or in PowerPoint, in M365 chat, you get those little numbers throughout where it tells you where the reference is.
Right.
Um, okay, so that's telling me that there was a problem with it. Let's try again. Uh, I'm noticing that I'm not getting references in here. So it seems that maybe it's not going up earlier. You have not provided any table or description to work with. Can you please provide the necessary information? Well, I've given you the table right up there. Okay. So it seems like it's uh not doing that. It seems like what I would have to do is I copied this, right? Copied the description. Now let's go down here and say, give me a recipe for a drink called the Kraken's Kiss. This is the description for the drink. And then I'll put that in quotes. So it's a dark blend of coffee and orange. So now I'm feeding it the information. If I get like a really good accurate result, I think that might confirm that like it's not using the other parts on the page to, be smarter. Okay, so see it's got that anise, if that's how you're able to pronounce it. It's got orange, it's got whipped cream, and it's a dark coffee roast. So to me, I think that means that it's not using this context in its
Yeah, I agree with that.
response. Yeah.
I did a couple of examples following along, and I was
Hmm.
getting the same results. If I were to paste the name of the drink and the description from above into the prompt, then it
Hmm.
would build a card like you've got there for the ingredients and the instructions. And interestingly enough, it is laid
Yeah.
out almost exactly the same. 5 bullet points, a numbered list of
Instructions.
five down below. It's exactly the same layout
Really.
in mine. Mine's the Calico Jack's caramel swirl recipe, but I
Hmm.
pasted the name and the corresponding description into the prompt. It wouldn't look up the information that's on the same page.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so you're kind of seeing the same stuff that
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, and Daryl thinks that they're treating it as separate Copilot sessions. So even though we're on the
Yeah.
same page, it's separate Copilot instances, and they can't necessarily call one another here in Microsoft Loop.
Okay. Yeah. That's unfortunate because I would hope that what it would be doing is creating like an XML structure, of the page and it'd be able to kind of go up. Oh, you know what? Daryl's got this point too. You've shifted it into a component. So it's in a different file in the background. That's interesting. Yeah, what if I copied this table here?
So
I hate this
none of
critical
mine
error.
has been converted to a component yet. All of mine is
Okay.
basically text on a page, and I'm experiencing the same behavior. It's not calling anything on the page.
Okay. All right. I've just removed mine from a component. So I copied the table, I deleted the component, then I pasted the table back in. So it's all like in the same thing. So let's go down here. Let's give this thing some structure. So I'm going to do like sample holiday menu. I'm going to highlight that text. If you mouse over it, you can get the stuff. So I'm going to make that a heading, kind of give it a little bit of like structure here. I've got a heading for locations. This Kraken's Kiss recipe, we're going to highlight that, make that an H1, or let's make that a H2. We'll kind of make it like smaller. Um, and then we're going to do like uh, holiday plans, right? Change the title. I've changed some things. I've added a recipe. Uh, if I go down to the bottom, I'm wondering if I draft content, can I reference another page here? Because like elsewhere in M365 chat, you can like do the slash command inside a prompt and say use this file for inspiration, use this person, whatever. So I'm gonna do create a, I don't know, an idea for a mobile app using slash, and I wanted to be able to reference this. So if I put the slash command in, there's not a mention area inside here. So that's not doing it. If I go in here and I thought I could copy a link to the page. I guess the top of it I can copy a link. So I'll do share page link and then paste in that link as inspiration. Let's see if it makes any sense of that. Like, am I able to reference something else by a link URL? My guess is it's not going to work because it probably, if it was going to work, it would be like the slash command. Yeah, there was a problem generating that content. I guess so. There's create, and it gives you like different ideas of things, like kind of some sample prompts. Brainstorm is brainstorming strategies. Blueprint a way to make this, or describe this thing. So I wonder what the difference is between create, blueprint, brainstorm. So let's copy this text here and we'll have create a list of potential color names. We'll do that prompt and then I'll put a prompt below it and I'll say the same thing, but I'll say brainstorm a list of colors and see what type of different thing it gives me. So there's some like names of colors. If I go down to the bottom again and do draft page, let's do brainstorm. Paste that in, and I'm going to say brainstorm a list of potential color names. I doubt it's going to format it any differently. I think maybe those buttons are just there for inspiration. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just a list of colors. If I go down here and do draft blueprint, I'm going to take out the list and see if it gives me still a bulleted list or not, because I took out the word list. So all it did was make it a numbered list. So I don't really see any difference in the little prompt helpers. Have you found any difference in that?
Not yet. As I've
Okay.
been following along, I haven't seen anything.
Another thing I've noticed if I go in here and do draft is you don't get like those slider controls like you get if you're in Copilot for Outlook, for example, where you've got like what length do you want, what formality do you want, stuff like that. That would be something that's interesting is if Microsoft would add like some sliders in here. I think that might be helpful to say, well, what type of block do you want? Do you want texts, bullets? Do you want a table? Do you want a stand-up block? Whatever, a voting block. I think that would be kind of nice to have almost like a UI on here where it's like, what format do you want? What length do you want? That could kind of help people guide a little bit better. Stupid dog barking again. Yeah, I don't know. So now that I've added some stuff to this, let's try adding a recap. So I'm going to go back up here, create new recap. And then rather than typing in that recap, like what Daryl said, that's like a comment back to your team. Instead, I'm going to recap with AI. So it's going to understand that I added a recipe list, I added a list of locations, and a table that I pulled out of a component and I pasted it back in. So it's a new table. Let's see what it thinks I did. Okay, so he added a sample holiday menu, which is the name of that block that I did, and he deleted text from the document. But it didn't get that I added these locations and this recipe. So that's not really that smart. Added sample holiday menu, added sample holiday. So it just kind of added that to it. Let's keep going. Okay, it just keeps adding the same thing. It's gotten repetitive. So that's kind of not as impressive as I was hoping. Anything else on this, or have we kind of capped out the capabilities of Loop?
So I know we tried a little while ago to access
Mm-hmm.
a loop component in another location with Copilot. We need to revisit that because there's some things
Okay.
about that that actually work, but also I got a couple other things that I want to explore along that. So let's say we start off with a loop component and we bring that into a Word document. Are we going to be able to use Copilot in Word to reference things from that Copilot from the loop component that we've created? Like for example,
Okay.
if I bring a recipe from my loop recipe book into
Mm-hmm.
a Word document, and then I want to draft a marketing description around that using Microsoft Word, am I going to be able to do that? I think we're approaching Loop from the other end of that spectrum.
Okay.
Uh, might be something
So
fun to explore.
So I've wrapped the menu in a loop component. That makes it portable. I've copied the loop component, so I've got a
Mm-hmm.
link in my clipboard. Let's go over to Word and let's put that component into the Word document. So let's close this. Let's pop that in there. So it's rendering the loop component. This is live back over in the loop workspace. There's my live component. I'm going to give it a little bit of time to kind of process that. I'm going to name it something. So we're going to call Jolly Roger holiday menu. So that's the name of my document. It's saved in my OneDrive in a documents folder. I've given it a name. Now let's go to Copilot here. And you're thinking like maybe summarize this document, right?
Yeah, let's
And see
see.
if it can read inside the component.
Yep.
I need at least 60 words to generate a summary.
All right. So that's interesting to know. All right.
It's
So
seeing it as 0 words at the
yep.
bottom.
So now what I want you to do is go below the component that you entered in the
Mm-hmm.
document itself. Okay.
Okay.
Access Copilot there,
Okay.
and then see if you can get it. Like ask it to draft a description of the table above.
Okay.
We're getting very Inception like with our
Yeah.
exploration.
Well, that's what deep dives are, right? We're
Yep.
playing with it, kicking the tires. So, all right, yeah, we're going to. Oh yeah, it's totally hallucinating. It's doing salads and sandwiches.
Yeah. All right. So we know we're not going to keep this one. So let's
Yeah, so
trash
that
that.
failed.
All right. So
Um,
now
can
try
I
it
reference
again,
my
but
content?
reference your content and see if it'll reference
Yeah,
a loop component.
browse files from cloud. So I can reference documents, but I can't reference the loop component because I'm in Word. Remember the
Yeah.
very, very beginning, what we talked about is we've got like in-app experiences and we've got cross-app experiences.
Yep.
Word is an in-app experience. So it's within the context of what Word can do. If you want to go outside of that and you want to get more like flexibility, that's where you jump out to cross-app experience, which would be M365 chat. So let's go to M365 chat, the Copilot icon right here, and let's see if we can reference it there. So write some marketing, write some sample, give me 3 sample tweets for the menu items in slash files. Nope, it's not finding the loop component either. And that loop component was the sample holiday menu. Let's see what it gave it the title of. Untitled page. That's real original. So let me see if I can rename that. Let's go back to my OneDrive and just rename that that thing. So this is another like little tip. I want to see just loop components. So I'm on office.com. I'm in my home. I want to filter by just loop components. So there's new, type, loop. So now I'm showing like just these things. I guess it gave it this component name. Yeah, there it is. So let me copy a link to this component now. People can edit this thing. Everybody in the tenant can edit this right now. Let's go back to M365 chat. Where are you? I guess because I clicked out of it, it's a new thing. So write a 3 tweets marketing menu items from, and then I'm just going to paste in the link. Let's see if it can go into that loop component, or just is Copilot not able to like reference loop components yet? I'm guessing probably not. Yeah, I couldn't receive anything from that.
All right, let's try one more version of that, but rather than like
Okay.
copying the link like you did, go.
Mm-hmm.
Can we get to the details pane for that that component and just grab the direct path?
So like this direct
Um,
path.
no, that one's still got the markup in it. Are you able to get to the?
Let's
go to your
go.
OneDrive?
Okay. So there's the loop component right there.
Yeah, no, go back to
It's still slash
Microsoft
P slash E1.
365 Home,
Okay. All
and
right, I'm
then
there.
all right, go to that menu. Yeah, go to
Let's
Open
open
File.
file location. What? Let's
It's
go to it
probably
through
a hidden
OneDrive.
folder. Then yeah,
I bet you're right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. So if I go to my files, yeah, I don't have
yeah.
a components folder.
But you know how when you're here, you can right click on an item, go to the details, and then in the details pane, you can go to the
Uh-huh.
path.
Yeah, that's where's that right here?
Yeah, it's all the way at the bottom,
Yeah.
and there's the path right there. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
was gonna see if we could do it like based off of that.
That goes in as like slash personal slash my name slash documents.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, because it's in like a hidden location, uh, so we can't do that. What if I just copied the entire component? I doubt it's going to render in M365 chat, right? If I go into Copilot or M365 chat, paste it in. See, it doesn't render because it's not a normal Teams chat, right? If I
right.
do it from Microsoft Teams, the other place you can do in 365 chat is in Teams in the sidebar right here. But you'll see you don't have those fully rich capabilities. So I pasted it in here. It's a link. Oh, look at that. It did render it. Write 3 tweets using this menu for items in this menu. And then I'm putting the component in there. Let's see if this does it. We're definitely learning together today. I don't use Loop that much, especially like not yet with Copilot, because the people in my organization, there's only like a couple dozen of us that have Loop app. I could not find anything in there. So it's the same message that I had before, where it's not looking in the content. So, dang. What if I copy the raw table? So there's the raw information. Write 3 tweets for drinks on this menu. Boom. Now let's see what it comes back with. Now it's going to be able to do it because it's like all, shoved together in the same prompt.
Yeah,
Yeah, warm up this winter with this. Indulge your treasure, rewrite these, but use a stupid amount of emojis. Let's see if it can do that. What?
thumbs up, thumbs down. Send
Yeah, right.
that feedback.
I'm gonna
Just send
say
it.
use lots of emojis. It might have hit me with responsible AI. Say like, don't call my bot stupid. No, it couldn't help either. Okay. So we did get something here, but I had to extract the text out and put it in the prompt. I'm sure that I could do the same thing with this if I grabbed this and stuck it into Word where we were. Where were we at here? Jolly Roger holiday menu. So I've got the loop component right here at the bottom. If I just delete everything, paste in that table, now I could go down here and do the same thing. So write 3 tweets for the menu above and use fun emojis. I want to see if it'll like use those or not, or if it's going to just, yell at me again. Because that's something I like about Bing Chat and like Chat GPT is you're able to like kind of make it more fun. There you go. Try new seasonal holiday things. The thing is though, those are not tweets. Like that's too many characters. But now you see my word count has gone up too, right? So because I've got the text in it, it's not referencing somewhere else. So I think what we've learned today with Loop is you can use Copilot inside of Loop, but you cannot reference it from somewhere else outside of Loop. It looks like that container's kind of walled off from the rest of Copilot being able to reference it, which means if you ask for like a summary of, oh, what happened in the past day, it's not going to give you anything from Loop, I think is what that means. So if your team is working like 75% of their day in Loop and you ask what happened last week, it's going to tell you about other things, but it's not going to tell you about 75% of what the team did. I think that's kind of a blind spot for Microsoft at this point. Hopefully we'll see that be more accessible in the future. So
I think we're also stumbling on some interesting use cases that may not be there yet. I'm hoping that I will be able to
mhm.
use Copilot within the context of a loop page and reference other things that maybe I've converted into components. I also think
Mhm.
it's an interesting use case that like I would be able to keep my recipes in a loop workspace and then reference the individual recipes as components, and then in a Word document be able to draft
Mhm.
a description for use in social media and things like that. I think that's an interesting case that maybe those teams are working on, or maybe just haven't thought about yet. Maybe if we know somebody that can help us to provide some feedback on that, I know I would be up for sitting in on a
Mhm.
PGI for Loop and Copilot and some of these experiences.
Yeah, like kind of where's it headed?
Yeah.
Daryl's got a good point here. That's like, well, that's when you would use that recap, right? To like leave behind what your team worked on. That's helpful, but like the problem in my opinion with that, Daryl, is like the manager needs to know to go there, right? And then now they're kind of like hunting through all the different pages to see what their team worked on. What I'm thinking is like kind of more streamlined for the manager themselves would be what did my team do, and have it bring in like here's the emails that happened, here's the group chats you missed, here's all of the stuff. I would hope that Loop would be part of that in the future. So it'd be like, oh, and your team did a whole bunch of these things inside of Loop, because it needs to be a first class citizen as far as like discoverability. So yeah, for Geek Mothers, Andy's calling Daryl out. Yeah. Okay, so I think there's been a few things that like I think kind of leave a little bit to be desired, right? Like being able to reference it, being able to reference it further up on the page to say, hey, I've got this recipe right here. Give me, all the recipes for these menu items. Being able to like kind of reference above would be nice. I was thoroughly impressed though, Andy, with adding a table, a column to a table. I kind of didn't expect that to work, and that I've been reading up more on the orchestration from Steve Goodman at Practical 365, and he was saying that the piece of Copilot that basically like invokes the ability to create a Word document or invokes adding a new slide to a PowerPoint, that's the Office core orchestration engine. So it looks like that's the same thing happening here in Loop. It's saying, I'm not going to blow it away and recreate the whole thing. There's already existing content here. I'm going to use the orchestration within this application to just insert a new column, not disrupt all of your, information, but just like add to it. I was thoroughly impressed that that worked out. Um, I think that was
Now,
really nice to see that happen.
so that's a core capability in Copilot and Excel. Are there any other
Hmm.
things that we can do with that? So, like for example, can it conditionally format values that are above $5 inside of that table? Can it sort or highlight items in that table, much like we've seen in Copilot and Excel?
Yeah, I'm trying something else here. So since I copied and pasted that table out, it's not a table that was created with Copilot anymore. So I don't have that Copilot history. Instead, what I'm doing is I clicked on the button, the little grabber, and I did rewrite with Copilot. I'm going to say add a location. Let's see if this blows away the whole table or not. Or is it going to just insert it in there? Let's see if it's smart enough. Yeah, she says, when I say premium, you say dollar signs. That's a fair point. Hey, so it did do what I wanted it to. I wanted it to add a location without blowing away the whole table. So even though this was not a Copilot created table, because I copied and pasted the raw text, it still knew enough about the structure of the table to not mess up what already existed. It added to it. So that makes me happy. I think that's pretty impressive to kind of augment something that already exists. Um, so yeah, I feel like we've talked a lot about Loop, and gotten at least myself thoroughly confused and twisted up. Do you want to shift over to Whiteboard and start playing with that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go to your screen again. There you go.
So in this session, we're going to be talking about Copilot in Microsoft Whiteboard. With some of the known capabilities, we should be able to work with Copilot in Whiteboard to summarize the content that's already there, but it can also help us to draft and generate new ideas for the whiteboard experience. We're going to explore how we can draft and ideate. We're also going to explore how we're going to be able to organize and categorize the information that's there. I'll start from a whiteboard that I've already kind of mocked up and thrown a little bit of material in, and then we'll dive
Hmm.
a little deeper. Need to go to the service descriptions though for just a moment. So, Copilot in Whiteboard service description. Accelerate your ideation process, generate, categorize, and summarize your ideas. So it doesn't provide a ton of insight there, but we'll get hands on with it and we'll go from there. So I've already started a whiteboard experience, and just like we mentioned before, we can't collaborate because we are in separate environments. But I'll step through this as much as I can here in mine, and let's just make this a little bigger. All right. So we'll walk through this, but I've basically just done a couple things to get started. So right away, I've inserted a PowerPoint presentation, just about 19 slides inside of there. I wanted to see what we're going to be able to do against like a file, for instance.
Hmm.
Also have just kind of put in a generic cost benefit analysis. This is one of the out of the box templates. Haven't really added anything to it, but I do have a little bit of some Copilot assisted information right over here, where I asked it to come up with some cost benefits for the Jolly Roger Java coffee shop. Now, full disclaimer on this is a new tenant. I have put some information in there, but we didn't get that information in there until today. So still relatively new. I'm going to
Hmm.
try and reference some of that other information stored in like my OneDrive as like I'm working through this. But we're just going to kind of see what happens along with this. So first thing I'm going to do, Copilot down in the menu bar down below. Let's go ahead and open that up, and you can see we've got suggest, categorize, and summarize. I already have some information there, so I kind of want to see what's going to happen if we go and summarize like right away. And so it's going to say it also points out that it's going to summarize the note content inside of here. All right, so curious. These are the only notes that I had with information in them. So it did move to the part of the canvas where those notes were. And then we'll just let it summarize from there. Now, it's summarizing, but also notice that it created a loop component with that. So now we've got a loop component, be able to pull that back into like one of my workspaces or reuse it, which is interesting, but also I think that's the expected behavior because we're in whiteboard
Hmm.
working with this. So just going to glance through this real quick and see the ideas that it generated and how that actually matches up with the notes that were already generated inside of there. So we got customer retention. That falls in with the repeat customers, cost reduction. energy efficiency with appliances, so that lines up. Community involvement, so there's a couple things there. Partnerships, so it is working in the context of that. I think this is also really interesting. Scrolling down here, it's got a snapshot of the whiteboard, and a link to where it actually came from, actually built into
Hmm.
the component that it created. I think that's a nice little touch. Provides some context, especially if you reference this loop component somewhere outside of the whiteboard experience.
That's what I like the most about that, or one of the little like
Mhm.
quality of life features that I think is great about the summary, is that that screenshot is static. So when you're sharing this, because the idea is like you're going to take this summary, you're going to like copy the component, put it into a Word document or an Outlook email or a Teams chat. You're going to send it to like the whole team. You don't necessarily want them messing up your whiteboard, right? So it's it's giving you like a static picture of when that summary was created, so you can see the structure of it. They could, I guess, zoom into it, right, and see that, but they don't mess it up because it's like literally just a screenshot, basically a capture of it. um, I think that's an important piece because you're not going to have people messing up things from you. Now that generated by Copilot from Whiteboard and Whiteboard, which is great because like you must have named it just, or not given it a name yet.
Not
I
yet.
think I think you'd want to think though about like who's my audience, and do I want them to actually get into my whiteboard and start looking at it, or am I creating like an executive summary? It's just for informational purposes. So it's important to point out that like you can edit this component because it's just a loop component inside the whiteboard. So you can totally like adjust if it got the bullet points wrong, or like you don't want to give them the link to the whiteboard, you could just delete that last line. So you can kind of do a little bit of like editing and kind of cleaning up on that component before you send it off. It's not, you don't have to just get what Copilot gave you. You can make it better with that human component. Remember, we want to keep human in the center. The human is important in this equation, right? So don't take everything at its word. Make sure that everything's accurate. And two, take that opportunity to really understand like where is this going and what do I want people to do with it? Because otherwise, it's like, why are you sending this if you don't have an idea of what you want them to do? Um, and I think that would dictate whether you're going to send a static image or a link to the live board.
Right.
So I will also say, in my experience, this is really, really good. In my experience, we've been mapping out at EY, we were mapping out our onboarding process. And there's like all these different swim lanes of this team's going to send these onboarding things. Then we're going to schedule onboarding with the tech guys. The support people are going to like actually can provision the license. There's all these different swim lanes of teams that get involved. Our whiteboard was 241, I think, sticky notes. I summarized the whiteboard and it said 241 ideas generated. Here's all the bullets. And it did an awesome job. Like
Wow.
it wasn't off of a template. So we just kind of grouped them together and we made swim lane lines, but it totally understood what the structure was and said, this is a process workflow showing an onboarding for the Microsoft Copilot preview of 1,000 people. Here's what these teams are going to do. It figured all that stuff out off of like 200 plus sticky notes. So I was pretty impressed. That's the only time I've used it in a live actual work environment. And I gave it a pretty hard thing to deal with. And in my opinion, it came out with flying colors.
I would be really interested in how it was able to identify that you were mapping out a process, whether it was like using um, the exported image and then like the image identifying tools that Copilot supports, because you can go to like
Yeah.
Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft 365 chat, and you can upload an image and you can have it describe the image and what's going on in there. And I've done some similar things with some processes, some charts,
Hmm.
some screenshots coming from like PowerPoint presentations or whiteboards, and it's been able to identify things like that. So it seems like they've rolled some of that into the capabilities of this as well. And so,
See, I think what happened is I think it did it off of the similarity of the text, because it,
Yeah.
like, I think it understood that, like, this group of sticky notes, and I think it sees everything as just like bullets or something like that, right? I don't think it knows about the color or like the proximity. I think it was using the text
Yeah.
context to figure out what the themes were. The only reason I'm saying that is, to my knowledge, I don't believe that M365 Copilot has GPT Vision yet, because in my experience, I haven't been able to like analyze images or diagrams or things like that. When I go into like the attach area, I can, do like Word documents and PowerPoints, and it
Hmm.
does like the text out of that XML. But I haven't been able to like upload a picture of my refrigerator and get recipes. I can do that in Bing Chat Enterprise because that has like Dolly and the vision capabilities.
Yeah.
So my guess is that probably it wasn't visually based. It probably was only like the text and figuring out, inferring what it was, that like these bullets in the sticky notes were like moving from one step to another basically. But yeah, I would be curious, like, if you were able to group things together or color them in a certain way, if it would start understanding later on that, like, oh, the purple things are this category, the green things are that category. Thinking back, and I don't have access to my UI laptop right now, but in the response that it gave me, it didn't say anything about the color of the sticky notes. What it was is, this team is going to do these steps, that team is going to do these steps, and it kind of had like themes about it.
Yeah.
So
Still impressive.
we did
That
color
number of
code them,
slides
but
and inferring a relationship between it, and then being able to summarize off of that. That's pretty powerful.
I was surprised it was able to do like over 200 and like
Right.
figure out what the heck was going on. That was impressive. I kind of figured it would bomb out because it'd be like too much to deal with, but it's a huge whiteboard. It's a real ugly whiteboard. So we worked on it. It was the culmination of like 5 weeks of working on this whiteboard. And when we got to the end of it, I did a summary with Copilot, and it spit that out. So
Awesome. Well, let's keep diving into it then. We've done this summarize, and we now know that the capabilities here are huge. I haven't done anything even remotely that large with my exploration of it yet, so that's really good to know. Some of the that there's not really the boundary is potentially really high for like what you can bring into it. Um, Going back into Copilot here in Whiteboard, though, we're going to go to suggest, and we're going to look for ideas and content and see what it actually suggests. I don't have a ton of content in here, so maybe before I even go and suggest, let's go and pull like one of um,
hmm
our like recipes, for instance, or our description for one of the beverages. Let's drop that into the whiteboard so we've got some text and some other content in there, and then we'll see how
Okay.
we go from there.
Yeah, so it should be able to read that type of stuff. But I think what we found out before is, if you were like popping a component out, slapping the component in, it's not going to read into that file.
Right.
So I think you're going to get better results here by having the raw text on the board.
Yeah.
Similar to like those slides you've got in the upper corner, I don't think Copilot is going to be able to give you ideas off of the text in those slides, because I don't think it's doing OCR quite yet. That's going to blow the doors off of the capabilities whenever like it can do like deep visual analysis of things.
Right.
Because I've been really impressed with Bing Chat Enterprise and how it's able to
Yeah.
do it. You know.
All right, so let's now go in. Let's suggest ideas and content. So we're just going to look for a cost analysis benefit for Blackbeard's Delight, and I
hmm
just want to
So I
see
would
how it's
hope
going
that
to.
it would understand, like, it would think about like, okay, dark chocolate syrup might be more expensive than just milk chocolate syrup, or you might, consider saving money in this way or that way, right?
Heavy whipped cream.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Rather than heavy cream, you could use, Cool Whip or something
All right.
like that.
So here it's saying it's giving me 6 notes that it thinks might apply to the request that I'm asking. Bulk ingredient purchasing, reduce or eliminate waste, utilize seasonal produce, simplify the recipe steps. So I'm going to insert all of this because I'm curious to see what we're going to get. And we'll just move this around a little bit.
Yeah, and it made like it's not an actual note grid because it doesn't have like the new note button, the new sticky button.
Yeah.
It's just like a loose grid of notes that's sticky. It's 6 actual sticky notes, but they're not actually like connected to each other. I don't think. I think you can click on one of them and drag it out independently, can't you?
Yeah, we can do that. They're grouped right now, though.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
so before we drag anything out, it's still here. It's still open. It's got all options to categorize and options to suggest. So let's drill down into that. So categorize. I'm just gonna say to categorize the notes. Oh, so that's really good. Broke it up into different swim lanes, essentially, headers, and then color coded each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's actually keep that.
I feel like this output, maybe I'm just negative today because I want to be off for Christmas, but I kind of feel like that output is like really generic. I don't know that it's really like pulling anything from that
Oh no, I
particular
agree with
block
you.
of text that you
Yeah.
did. So I'm wondering like seasonal produce. Could you drill in on that green box and say, you know what produce would be seasonal at what time of the year based on this recipe? Because I don't, yeah, if you did like suggest and say what produce in the recipe could give me, because I'm thinking that it's not actually reading the recipe.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's doing that at all. In fact,
Because
suggest more
there's no
ideas in the
fruits and
same
vegetables
theme.
in it.
Yeah, this is not in it's not letting me edit that here, but there is an edit option, so we'll come back to that. And then it's makes some
Hmm.
suggestions here down below. So let's actually edit this. So suggest some more ideas in the same theme as, and we're going to go back and say Blackbeard's delight recipe.
Hmm.
It's not
So you're going to
exactly,
reference something that's on the board. Hopefully, it would
yeah.
scrape the board. Captain's curry chicken.
So yeah, again, let's generate more. Go back through it. Shipmate shrimp scampi. Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah.
I love the
So I
alliteration
feel
there.
like it's doing a good job of getting over the blank page syndrome, but it's not
But
doing a great job of taking what's on the page and making it better. I think that's
right.
kind of where we're at on this. I'm curious, what if you pasted in the raw text of the recipe and be like, suggest some seasonal, some seasonal substitutions I could make based on the ingredients here, and then give it the ingredients. Yeah, delete that first text and say, suggest some
Nope.
seasonal ingredients I could use.
Tried to do my shift enter,
Oh, that's all right. We can try it
new
again.
break a new line
Um,
and dropped in. Yep, it's
okay,
still
so
just
that's doing,
generating.
those are entire menu items. And I think what you're doing is you gave it a menu recipe as inspiration for more menu items. Instead, change that first text to say, what in this recipe could I replace with seasonal items to save cost? There you go. Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to like look at the ingredients and understand, oh, that's a premium ingredient. You could do this. There you go. So instead
Use
of syrup,
instant
use
coffee
chocolate
instead of
powder.
espresso.
Yeah, gross.
Almond
It'll not be
milk.
in business very long.
Almond milk in place of regular milk. Guess it depends on your market. Skip the whipped cream and the cocoa powder. use a
Hmm.
smaller amount of chocolate syrup, use a dairy-free alternative.
Yeah, basically cut corners is everything, um, which is to be expected. But so I think what this gets to, I think the learning that I want to extract out of this section right here is it's about the prompt engineering and it's about
Yeah,
understanding the capabilities and the limitations of Copilot right now. Copilot's pretty dang amazing. I'm really impressed, and it's really impressive to see all the sizzle reels and all that. But it's important to get hands on, and it's important to do like what we're doing, really kick the tires of it, understand where the limitations are, because what we've learned here is okay, it's not reading the text that's on the whiteboard right there, right? It probably would do it if those were in like a bunch of sticky notes. It probably would notice the structure, actually read it because that's what how the summary works. But it's important to note that like it's only going to give you like C minus quality results when you hit the suggest button. But if you give it like the recipe in the prompt and you do what's called prompt engineering by giving it the right context, by giving it the right format you're looking for, setting boundaries for it, those core components of prompt engineering, that's where you get something that's more usable, right? So Copilot is not magic at this point, even though it feels like magic to the untrained eye, to the brand new person. As you use this more, I think you're going to realize like, okay, this isn't going to just like totally replace my job, right? You've got to know what the limitations of your tools are. You got to know what they're capable, what they're good at, so that you can craft the right way to use the tools, right? I think that's what I'm trying to say here is that like, you know, it's not going to just magically solve all your problems, and it's not going to automate away your entire job because this is another point I heard I think in Steve Goodman and Paul Robichaux where they were talking about Copilot capabilities and how everything's going the Copilot route. But the thing is, like, you still got to be good at your job because you've got to understand if it is giving you nonsense or not, right? So you need to understand what you want out of it so that it can give you the inspiration, it can point you in the right direction, but it's not going to just completely make your coffee shop for you. You've got to look and evaluate like Andy, you did all of those suggestions right there, but you've got to understand the coffee industry to understand that if I replace espresso with instant coffee, that's going to hurt my business more than it's going to help my business. So I shouldn't take that recommendation, right? Um, I don't know. That's a soapbox I guess I just got on about like, uh, we need to use these tools effectively and understand what they can do, what they can't do, so they can help us and not just like throw everything at it. Because honestly, if you use it the way it is just out of the box and you don't put any effort into it, you're going to get pretty crappy results, honestly. So,
and we're trying to fit these tools into a process. Sometimes we have to redefine the process, but they need to fit into a process that we're already working in. They need to
mhm.
extend the capabilities of that process. We want to use this to make things a little bit simpler, but we have to learn how it fits in and like where we're going to best utilize it as well.
Mhm. Um,
So
I will
let's
say
keep diving
though,
into this.
like I'm not too impressed honestly by the generation, the suggest option, because like I wish it would read the board and kind of have more context.
Right.
Um, I have been impressed in the past with the summarization, and honestly, I do feel like the categorization does a really good job too
Yeah.
where like it put in like simplification things, purchasing things. Um, that's one of those items that if you've got a ton of sticky notes on a board and you want to recategorize them by themes, I think that's pretty valuable because a lot of times you're biased, right? And when you're looking at a bunch of sticky notes and you're trying to think of the themes, I feel like if you use the categorize option with Copilot on a whiteboard, it could kind of take maybe some of your bias out of it by saying, this is what I think Copilot, this is what Copilot thinks are the themes. And you might get something that's a little bit more innovative thought than what you already were kind of thinking down. So,
I also think it's really telling what some of the limitations that we're running to are into are. how
Hmm.
they're weighting Copilot's capabilities here inside of Whiteboard versus like some of the other apps. So clearly, it's very good at identifying and working with like sticky notes and cards, which means
Yeah.
that that has a high priority for the Copilot experience here. It's really good at identifying content inside of that and then being able to transform that into something more organized, like we've seen here, color coding, putting like items together. So I would be interested to take it against your 240 cards and have it
Hmm.
organize those, maybe organize like a chunk at a time and see like how it organizes that. Like maybe if it identifies themes that maybe you didn't readily identify, if maybe it takes large blocks,
Hmm.
breaks it down into smaller, more digestible chunks. I would be interested to see how it's going to look at organizing that. I've got a couple ideas. I don't know if we're going to have time to be
Hmm.
able to get step through them, but I've got a couple ideas. Like, what if um, each recipe that we're doing for like the winter was broken up into a card that represents each one of the ingredients. So let's
That's
say I
what I
had
was gonna suggest is could we
yeah
make do you have a couple recipes at your fingertips?
yeah
Maybe what we could do is why don't we create a note grid and put the recipes as the different cards and then try categorizing those, try suggesting when they're as a note card because I think the sticky note is important. I think what you said is really relevant. I think a sticky note registers as like higher priority than a text box when it comes to whiteboard because I think the sticky notes they give it structure a little bit more.
So I've got two recipes here. I know the text is a little small, but I'm just going to use this as basically as a
Just want to
copy
like
and paste.
paste those into stickies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm also curious, like, is there a difference between a note grid and just a yellow note? You know, just like a plain standalone note. Um, I'd have to say the one that we did like 240 items on for like that onboarding swim lane thing, we used standalone sticky notes. We didn't do any note grids in it. So I don't know if it's going to be able to summarize a note grid as effectively.
So I'm just going to I want to just experiment a little bit.
Hmm.
And I'm just breaking up the ingredients in here.
Hmm.
Actually, let's just duplicate this one.
And on the side, I'm going into my M365 chat. I'm pasting in the drink list, and I'm just gonna try to get like recipes for all the drinks all at once in a single prompt. We'll see if I'm successful or not in doing that. So in Teams, there we go.
All right. So I've got the main recipe here, and then I've broken it up into individual ingredients. So I'm curious, like, if we go and run
Hmm.
the categorized now, the notes in the view, how it's going to break that up. So it's selected those.
Okay. Hopefully, it would do it by like dairy and okay.
So caramel. I mean, it organized it in this case by ingredient, and then here drop the milk and espresso in there. So I'm going to revert. That's interesting. So now what I want to do, just one more quick version of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ingredients from Blackbeard's drink, and we'll just copy that. And then we'll come down and we'll just repeat the process, and I'll try to go as quick as I can on this. But what I want to do is I want to bring in the Blackbeard drink.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's the whole one. And then let's just duplicate that. And then I want to break that up into individual ingredients. Come on, release. Does that happen? I can't be the only person that this happens to. Like,
What did it do?
it just grabs and it won't let go of
Oh,
whatever it thinks that
your
it's supposed to
cursor was
be.
stuck to it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I have had that happen. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so an update on my creating recipes in M365 chat. It didn't like the table, so I'm going to do them as a bulleted list to try to get it to create like 6 drink recipes. Because I want to put those recipes in a note grid in parallel and see if I can do summarizations and stuff, or is it going to be locked into that grid format?
All right. So I think this has got it. Okay. So now we've got two separate sets of drink recipes in the same view. So let's go back and run it again. We're going to categorize this time. All right, it selected all of them. So let's see what kind of categories it puts it in. All right, so caramel coffee, chocolate coffee, and then other.
Okay.
Now, I'm looking at this, and every single one of these, basically, let's go back and like just zoom in. So like every one of these has Mia referenced at the top, and it has no other information. So I wonder if like if I were to drop the name of the drink into like each one with the recipe or ingredient underneath it, if that would make any difference. So we'll just say like Blackbeards. I'm just going to drop this in a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious how that's going to come out. All right, so let's go and run this again.
Okay, so that bulleted list of drinks worked for me rather than a table format. When I said like,
Okay.
"Hey, here's 6 drinks. Give me recipes for them." Finally.
And that's an M365 chat.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we'll go and take a look at that in a moment. Looking at this, it just dropping the name Blackbeard into different individual recipe items didn't do anything, didn't do any change.
Okay.
All right. So the other thing, like I was kind of curious to see is if like it's clearly looking at all of the 12 cards that I have here. But I was curious to see if like if it were going to group like items together, a cup of milk, a quarter cup of milk, but also reference the recipe that they came from. For example, this one was Blackbeard's Delight, and this was Calico Jack's drinks of their caramel swirl. So they're like 2 different beverages. So I was curious to see if it was going to like kind of stack the ingredients in the same column, but also maybe cross-reference the different beverages and keep those together. And it didn't do that.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to ask it to. I just want to see if like it'll actually. I want to do one more thing. I'm going to just. I want to select all of these guys. Cursor's locked again. I'm going to refresh. All right. I'm just curious. I'm selecting all of these, so I want to see if
Okay.
that's going to have any effect. Like if I go to do a suggestion, I'm just going to tell it generically organize these cards.
Yeah. It's using it as like a standalone prompt. It's
Yeah,
not
pretty
really taking
much.
any context.
Nope. And it even deselected whenever I went to do that. All right,
Yeah.
so let's just categorize in the view one more time. And then
Hmm.
once it pops up, I want to see. Let's try again.
Okay.
So espresso, chocolate, milk, not what I'm looking for. And there's no option to re-edit the prompt here. Like
Yeah,
if
you're
like
literally just it's a
suggestion,
suggest button. It's not
yeah,
it's not or it's a button that says categorize. It's important to call that out from other Copilot experiences. Other Copilot experiences you have a prompt, right?
yeah,
This one when you click the categorize button, you can't say categorize by grocery aisle or
right,
categorize by hot and cold, or something like that.
yeah. So it's
I
not
do
letting
wish
us
I could say,
do
how do you
that.
want me to categorize it?
All right, let's do this. Let's drill into one. Oops. So like we've got this one, and so there's just or like it's got a suggestion inside of it,
Hmm. And it's
and
suggesting
similar
based
to
off the content of the sticky note.
so it's suggesting more ideas in the same theme as what's inside of there.
Hmm. And you can edit that one if you're generating
So
content.
suggest 5 more recipes in the same theme as, and see what it generates based off of changing the prompt that way.
Something went wrong.
You have reached the end of your Copilot.
Yeah. You've done 30 turns.
Yeah, it doesn't want to follow along or move anymore.
Let me grab the screen real quick, and I've got a note grid. So here's what I did. I created recipes based off of these, drink descriptions. So I've got like 6 recipes here. I pasted them in as their own thing. Now, what I've noticed is this is a note grid. So that you guys that are familiar with Whiteboard, if you go to like a new sticky note, you can do a new note by itself, or you can do what's called a note grid. It's this little icon to add a whole collection. So I added a note grid and I put them so they're grouped as one. Whoops, they're grouped as like one entity, right? So when I move this, it moves together, right? What I noticed though is that when I invoke Copilot, categorize and summarize are blanked out. So it doesn't see them as a container of 6 individual items. It sees it as like one thing, I think. So what I'm curious about is if I grab these, I'm going to move them out. So I'm detaching them from the note grid, right? So now they are 6 individual objects on the whiteboard. So I've got them right there. I'm going to delete that container, right? And now they're standalone. Okay. So now that's lit up because it sees 6 individual objects. So it can categorize, it can summarize because there's more than one thing on here. So now what I want to see is like if I summarize it, this is the only thing on the board is just these 6 sticky notes. So this is going to tell me there's 6 ideas that have been generated, and I'm curious to see what it thinks about it. So there's my loop component. There's 6 ideas generated. The main ideas are like, here's the 6 things. It basically described the 6 items. Um, so it kind of just talks about like what you're creating. Uh, what I want to do next is what is it going to do if I categorize the entire? So what Andy's got is like ingredients, and some of them are full things, and some of them aren't. So I'm gonna delete that component if I can. Whatever.
I think you got to go
Uh,
down and acknowledge it.
It might.
Scroll down.
Oh,
Yeah.
keep it. Thank you. Sorry. Um, I was like, why can't I get rid of that? So now let's take this and categorize it because they're all like fully fleshed out ingredient or recipes. Let's categorize that. And it does know that there's 6 items, so it draws the wrapper around it and says, what do you want to categorize? So I'm going to do that and we'll see what it gives me. So it gave me coffee delights and tea infusions. So let's take that, which it's got a spiced chai right there, but everything else. So these are holiday coffees, spiced teas, lattes, and mystery blends. So mysterious coffee blend. It sees that it's like a mystery thing.
I
So you're
love the
getting different
creativity of it.
things. Yeah. Which is pretty good. Like, actually, this is probably the best of all of them. The ones that are chocolate, spiced, lattes, and teas.
Yeah.
That's probably the best. But I can't say categorize by temperature, categorize by holiday. And you've got like Valentine's ones and Christmas ones and Halloween ones. Um,
It's
it's
very
just
much
kind of
top
like what
level of
it
the
thinks.
hierarchy.
Yeah. So I wish that I could kind of steer it in different directions, by saying like, categorize the ingredients by grocery aisle or something like that. But it is pretty creative, like winter warmers, holiday treats. Like those are pretty good if you were creating like a chalkboard of the menu items, you could put these headers, right? And put your menu items on it. So, um yeah, and we'll keep that. But that's one learning is they do have to be individual sticky notes, not grids. I think is what we've discovered out of that little
Yeah.
exercise. So, um, what else with this? We've kind of covered the 3 things, right? Creating new items from scratch, that's suggest. Organizing existing items, that's categorizing, and that only works with notes, not note grids. And then summarizing content, which again only works with notes. Um, I think in your summary that you did, I'm going to swap your screen. In your summary, it didn't do anything with these slides, did it?
No.
Okay, it only did the sticky notes. Okay. My
Yeah.
guess
Like
is that
even
probably is
now.
because like the structure, it's probably some kind of like XML structure of like the the sticky notes are like a div, or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I select all the slides in the presentation, it
Hmm.
doesn't want to interact with them. Copilot doesn't want to interact with them at all. In fact, like categorize is in this case, even though there are some items in the view, there's nothing
Hmm.
in the content. Doesn't want to even categorize from
They're
there. The
empty.
suggestions are going to be very
Yeah.
generic.
If you put gibberish in those empty notes, then would your categorize light up?
Yeah,
Okay. That's what I'm suspecting. Yeah, it essentially sees it as a blank board right now. There's nothing to categorize because all the stickies are empty. So it's kind of completely ignoring the text boxes, the drawings, the injected images, all of those things. So, okay.
so I think those are the primary experiences inside of there. Suggest within the context of a note, categorize with related to notes, um, and then suggest, categorize, and summarize based off of the larger board. But definitely weighted heavily on notes versus other forms of content.
Yeah. I think it's also important to notice or to recognize that we're talking about Loop and Whiteboard in this session. Both Loop and Whiteboard are, in my opinion, the most collaborative of the Copilot experiences because like we could be doing this in a Teams meeting if we were in the same tenant, right? we could like we could have had a meeting together, we could have shared a whiteboard. Andy would get his Copilot button, I would get my Copilot button. If Andy was not, licensed for $30 a month and I would be able to use Copilot in our shared whiteboard even though his cursor's there, everything. I would be able to leverage my Copilot license to suggest things and categorize and summarize. Andy would be able to see what I was doing, right, by seeing the categories and the notes move around, but he wouldn't be able to also drive with me because he wouldn't have Copilot. Same thing with Loop, right? In a Loop app or Loop workspace, we're sharing a Loop workspace together. Andy, being unlicensed, would have all of the Loop pages, right? He'd be able to add blocks to it. He'd be able to do all those things. But if he was not licensed, he wouldn't have those two blocks for creating content and summarizing content. It doesn't preclude him from working with me in Loop. However, me as a Copilot user, if I was licensed and Andy wasn't, I would be able to use Copilot in our shared workspace. So we still get some benefit by having somebody have access to Copilot. So it's not a situation where everybody must be licensed, but it's also not a situation where like you can like almost lean on somebody else's license, right? So it's very much like a collaborative workspace with a personalized boost in functionality, right? So I think that kind of explains the experience a little bit when you're working with like mixed licensed people.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So I think that about does it, honestly. I don't know that that anybody else would want to sit through any more than 2 hours of talking about these two products. They're great, but we're not going into like basic functionality. We're just like on one thing in these apps. In the future, though, if you guys have other ideas of things you want to see, I love that we both have access to a sandbox now, because like we've both been using Copilot since like August, right? I just am not comfortable showing my EY environment, so I'm thankful to Microsoft that I've got a sandbox now. We can actually play together. I'm hoping that maybe in the new year we can get in the same sandbox, then we could do a little bit more realistic uh, situations. Daryl is in the sandbox with me. Al is in the sandbox with me. So maybe we'll be able to bring friends on and kind of do some more Copilot playing together. So if there's things you want to see with Copilot, things you're excited about that are coming, let us know what other deep dives you would like to see. I know that targeted for February on the roadmap, they've got things like Stream Copilot. I think that would be a good session. SharePoint Copilot, Viva Engage Copilot. Those things I think are in the like early next year time frame. So maybe we could revisit some of those like late winter, early spring. Andy, you and I, we were talking about maybe the next one being about Clipchamp, right? So let us know in the comments below if you're watching this now or later on. Would you like to maybe take a break from Copilot, talk about Clipchamp for a little while, kind of deep dive into Clipchamp because it's new, it's mature enough that I think it's time to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then maybe in February we could come back to Copilot Studio, like Paul mentioned that Copilot Studio would be good. I just set up Copilot Studio in my sandbox, so we are able to use that, Andy. Maybe we come
Awesome.
back for Copilot Studio. Maybe then by March, maybe some of those other experiences like SharePoint, Viva Engage, and Stream start coming out. We could start talking about those a little bit. So, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
we've
Let
got a
us know.
few ideas. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we've got a few ideas. We had a few at the end of the last video as well. But just let us know in the comments.
cool.
What are you interested in? This is our community. Emphasis on our we love sharing and collaborating. So what do you all want to hear? What do you want to see us deep dive into next? Let us know through the comments, and we will see what we can do about putting together a deep dive and hopefully break something live on the air while you're watching, because we like doing this is a lot of fun. We learn a lot, and your questions help us learn and think about things kind of outside the box as well.
Yeah, this was a fun one. I think it was really good. This was these are the two apps that both of us have, I think, the least experience in with Copilot specifically. So I definitely learned a lot in here. Hopefully, you guys kind of you'll have to use Chat GPT or Bing to watch this video and pull out the key learnings from it. I'm definitely going to do that. But uh, with that, I think that wraps up this year. It's been an insane year from where we started in 2023 in January to where we've ended up, and the topics that we've talked about. I think we've shifted a lot. We've done a lot of adapting over the past year, and I'm excited to see what 2024 brings us. So
Yeah,
cool.
me as well. Yeah, this has been a fun year. We are literally on the airplane, in the air as it's being built, especially in the Copilot world. Just trying to hold on as all of this innovation is coming out. Is we've
Yeah.
been drinking from the fire hose for quite a while. So let's disconnect for a few weeks, and then we'll circle back in the new year, and we'll pick up where we're leaving off from here.
Yeah. All right, guys. With that, thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us all year long, and we'll see you in January. Thanks again.
Happy holidays, everybody. We'll catch you in the
Bye,
next
everyone.
one.